Are you looking for a job that can lead to a career opportunity? MCC and OPS have teamed up to provide education training and job opportunities. We're looking for people that want to learn and work at the same time. We have open enrollment for training in the field of construction and job placement. For more information, contact us at 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Again, that phone number is 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Are you looking for a job that can lead to a career opportunity? MCC and OPS have teamed up to provide education training and job opportunities. We're looking for people that want to learn and work at the same time. We have open enrollment for training in the field of construction and job placement. For more information, contact us at 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Again, that phone number is 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org.
Hello, Facebook family and friends. It's yours truly, Antonio Lipscomb. I am your host for Black Power Presents, and we have another wonderful broadcast that we look to share with you today. We have a special guest, Kenneth Allen, who's running for school board, and also he's the commissioner for the African American Black males, for the status of Black males here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and abroad. We're going to bring him on. But just keep in mind, we always come on a little earlier before we go into our radio broadcast. And if you would like to be a part of this show and call in, you can simply call 317-239-1310. That's 317-239-1310 to be a part of this broadcast. We would love to have you to be a part of our show. Simply just call in. They'll let me know that you're there, and we'll do our best to try to bring you onto the show so that you can have comments as well. I want to get started because I got this topic that I want to try to set up when it comes to African American people and African American males, and looking at this from a historical position. And see, what happened. I mean, there was a time where I believe African-American people were doing quite well, especially being that Black people were the first people to ever be created on this earth. So I'm quite sure we was doing really well at a certain period of time. Then, of course, being put into slavery over in this country and whatnot, something went wrong to where we got over here and things are still kind of where it is today. I mean, not as bad because, of course, we're not in slavery, but still the actual remnants of slavery still exist. And so I've been doing a little bit of research today, and I want to share my screen. I'm going to go to a particular video. It's about a 5-minute video. I want you guys to watch it. And then I'm also going to be talking about Breonna Taylor as well. Situation, but I want you guys to watch this video real quick and let me know what you and let me know what you think.
The treatment of human beings as property, deprived of personal rights, has occurred in many forms throughout the world. But one institution stands out for both its global scale and its lasting legacy: the Atlantic slave trade, occurring from the late 15th to the mid-19th century and spanning 3 continents, forcibly brought more than 10 million Africans to the Americas. The impact it would leave affected not only these slaves and their descendants, but the economies and histories of large parts of the world. There had been centuries of contact between Europe and Africa via the Mediterranean, but the Atlantic slave trade began in the late 1400s with Portuguese colonies in West Africa and Spanish settlement of the Americas shortly after. The crops grown in the new colonies, sugarcane, tobacco, and cotton, were labor-intensive, and there were not enough settlers or indentured servants to cultivate all the new land. American natives were enslaved, but many died from new diseases, while others effectively resisted. And so, to meet the massive demand for labor, the Europeans looked to Africa. African slavery had existed for centuries in various forms. Some slaves were indentured servants with a limited term and the chance to buy one's freedom. Others were more like European serfs. In some societies, slaves could be part of a master's family, own land, and even ride But when white captains came offering manufactured goods, weapons, and rum for slaves, African kings and merchants had little reason to hesitate. They viewed the people they sold not as fellow Africans, but criminals, debtors, or prisoners of war from rival tribes. By selling them, kings enriched their own realms and strengthened them against neighboring enemies. African kingdoms prospered from the slave trade, but meeting the Europeans' massive demand created intense competition. Slavery replaced other criminal sentences, and capturing slaves became a motivation for war rather than its result. To defend themselves from slave raids, neighboring kingdoms needed European firearms, which they also bought with slaves. The slave trade had become an arms race, altering societies and economies across the continent. As for the slaves themselves, they faced unimaginable brutality. After being marched to slave forts on the coast, shaved to prevent lice, and branded, they were loaded onto ships bound for the Americas. About 20% of them would never see land again. Most captains of the day were tight packers, cramming as many men as possible below deck. While the lack of sanitation caused many to die of disease, and others were thrown overboard from being sick or as discipline, the captains ensured their profits by cutting off slaves' ears as proof of purchase. Some captains took matters into their own hands. Many inland Africans had never seen whites before and thought them to be cannibals, constantly taking people away and returning for more. Afraid of being eaten, or just to avoid further suffering, they committed suicide or starved themselves, believing that in death their souls would return home. Those who survived were completely dehumanized, treated as mere carnage. Women and children were kept above deck and abused by the crew, while the men were made to perform dances in order to keep them exercised and curb rebellion. What happened to those Africans who reached the New World, and how the legacy of slavery still affects their descendants today, is fairly well known. But what is not often discussed is the effects the emerging slave trade had on Africa's future. Not only did the continent lose tens of millions of its able-bodied population, but because most of the slaves taken were men, the long-term demographic effect was even greater. When the slave trade was finally outlawed in the Americas and Europe, the African kingdoms whose economies had come to dominate collapsed, leaving them open to conquest and colonization. And increased competition and influx of European weapons fueled warfare and instability that continues to this day. The Atlantic slave trade also contributed to the development of racist ideology. Most African slavery had no deeper reason than legal punishment or intertribal warfare. But the Europeans who preached a universal religion and who had long ago outlawed enslaving fellow Christians needed justification for a practice so obviously at odds with their ideals of equality. So they claimed that Africans were biologically inferior and destined to be slaves, making great efforts to justify this theory. Thus, slavery in Europe and the Americas acquired a racial basis, making it impossible for slaves and their future descendants to attain equal status in society. In all of these ways, the Atlantic slave trade was an injustice on a massive scale, whose impact has continued long after its abolition.
Superiority ranges from 24 to 50%, depending on sheet selection. Platinum Plus keeps your walls looking this long.
All right. So just to give you guys a little bit of a backdrop of what's happening right now, of course, we're waiting to come on the radio. But before we come on the radio, I wanted to set this as a stage for us to understand what we're talking about when it comes to Black people in relations to America, as well as the plight of African-American males here in this city. We're going to be talking about this actual clip, and I'm expecting Kenneth Allen to be on the show, as well as Dr. Lionel T. Rush, which is my pastor, a good friend of mine, to be on the show. And we invited others, however, they were not able to participate, but we're excited about this show. So again, if you want to be a part of it, just simply call 317 239-1310, and we will try to get you on to talk about what's going on. And so it looks like we're going to be counted in a minute. And once we get counted in, I got one more clip that I'm going to show, but I'm going to show this clip right on the air. And it's about Breonna Taylor. And I want us to also consider that situation and what's going over there. And so we're getting ready to come on in a minute. Again, you want to be a part of the show? 317-239-1310. And we're just excited about what's going on. And we're going to try to break this thing down from a historical position all the way up to what's going on currently. All right, so they're actually doing a commercial for me. So let me hit this commercial real quick.
Are you looking for a job that can lead to a career opportunity? MCC. Are you looking for a job that can lead to a career opportunity? MCC and OPS have teamed up to provide education training and job opportunities. We're looking for people that want to learn and work at the same time. We have open enrollment for training in the field of construction and job placement. For more information, contact us at 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Again, that phone number is 317-991-3150 or email.
Black people need to own our own businesses, which will provide an economic base. Teach our youth to become self-sufficient. Learn how to maximize our political affiliations and fight for criminal justice reform. You just tuned in to Black Power Presents with your host, Antonio Lipscomb. Come on, let's talk.
Okay, so we're back again, and just trying to wait till we come on the air. We should be counted in pretty soon. Again, if you want to be a part of the show, 317-239-1310. We're expecting Kenneth Allen to be our special guest, as well as Dr. Lionel T. Rush will be our guest on the day, talking about this historical problem when it comes to Black people, and also, of course, seeing what we can do to improve our situation here in America. So let me see here. As we're waiting, let me see what else I can do. I know we should be coming on in a second. I'm going to bring our guests on just to say hi real quick. Hey, Dr. Allen, how you doing, sir? Can you hear me?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, man.
Oh man, we in the backdrop of the show, man, but we want to make sure that you get on and we can hear you well, and seem like we can see you well, we can hear you well. I see you got your shirt on, Doc, looking good. I like that green, man.
Thank you.
So you out here working hard, man, and we're gonna talk about it in a minute. I just want to make sure that we get all this on the radio as well. Other than that, you doing all right?
Man, I'm blessed. I am blessed.
That's good. Working hard. Same here, brother. Hey, hot in this sweater though. I thought maybe it was gonna be a sweater day. I may have to shed a layer, man, because it's pretty nice outside. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna shed a layer.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but you doing all right?
Man, I am doing great.
Yeah, that's good, man. So we're going to be going into this show in a second. I know I got my phone here somewhere. But I think Dr. Lionel T. Rush is going to be coming on with us as well. Okay, they look like they playing. How many commercials you got, man?
I got 50 seconds left of my commercials right now, and I'm bringing you on.
50 seconds? Okay. All right. Sounds good. Let me say hi to Dr. Rush real quick. Bring him on. I see you, Doc.
Hey,
I see you. Hey, we got about 50 seconds, man, before I'm going to come onto the air, man. But I know I have my cell phone around here somewhere. We're trying to go deep. We showed a clip about the history of Black people here in America as far as the slave trade and how that's set up. Were you able to see it?
No, I wasn't able to see it, but if you see Kenny Allen on there anywhere, you don't tell him that I'm gonna endorse his black butt, because I think he's a dude. He's a man for the hour. But don't tell him that. Let me just think through this whole process, because we got some real stuff going, y'all. We need some real leaders. So we got to get our A team. Allen, A team, baby. Allen, like it. Boom. Okay.
All right. All right.
Good evening, Dr. Russ.
You know, I'm
all right. All right. So
I'm about to bring you on I'm playing the opening disclosure.
Okay, I can't hear it.
It's a disclosure right now.
All right.
Second. Intro is playing now, sir.
Okay. It's the only show I know you come in 10 minutes afterwards. Is my phone out there, Reverend?
All right, Tony, I'm putting you on the air now.
Okay. All right, it's Antonio Lipscomb. I'm your host again, Black Power Presents, and we're excited to be a part of this radio broadcast. Again, if you guys are watching by the way of Facebook, just simply go to Antonio Lipscomb, and even if you're watching by the way of YouTube, simply go to Minority Contractors Collaboration page, and you'll catch us on their live, streaming live right now. We have right now a guest of ours, Kenneth Allen, which is running for the school board. He's also the president of the Black Status Commission of Black Males. And then we got my favorite guy who's always in my corner here that comes on when he can. He's almost like a co-host. You know, he be claiming people, so I'm going to claim him, you know, to be a part of this Black Power Presents show. And we're just excited again. I just kind of had some delays and whatnot. We showed a big clip, and I don't want to show it again, but for those who have been watching us, we showed a clip about slavery. And a lot of times people don't know what happened when it comes to slavery. A lot of times the story is told that the Europeans went over to West Africa and they just snatched up a whole bunch of people, and the Africans were weak, and they just took them, just went in there ghetto style and just jacked them and took them and put them on this boat. And then they arrived over here. But when you really start researching what really happened, you'll understand that you had black kings over there that enslaved and imprisoned people through warfare and whatnot. And a lot of us who came from Africa over into America and to other parts of Europe, we were considered to be those who are prisoners of war, et cetera, and expendable people to the Africans. And we know that there was a trade going on between the kings, African kings, and the Europeans. A lot of it was based on weapons and goods and I guess it was tobacco and all this sort of thing. So in Africa, I'm talking about as far as the slave trade, we was considered expendable and property. And as we were shipped over to America, of course, we suffered some of the most brutality type of enslavement, I think, that any people could ever face on this side of heaven. It was just so grotesque. It's so even hard to even explain. If you looked at the video that we showed earlier, a lot of these people, a lot of us who are Africans that were shipped over here literally starved ourselves to death. Some of us just jumped overboard, being eaten by sharks and whatnot, because we just couldn't fathom the ideal of being enslaved in a country where you don't know nobody, your languages, your religion, your name. I mean, everything was compromised. And so this is the backdrop of what we want to try to discuss, gentlemen. But I do want to show this clip. Y'all going to appreciate this clip, because the reason why I'm saying this is because you have to study where you were to understand where are now. A lot of times we don't understand what's going on now because we're afraid to look back as to where we were. And as we know, tomorrow we're going to be celebrating Columbus Day because we know he discovered America. So everybody's going to take off work so that we can celebrate Columbus. And so with that in mind, when are we going to start really looking at the lies that's being told in relations to, you know, America and how we celebrate things? Because that's really ridiculous to me. To celebrate Christopher Columbus is really an insult to everyone's intelligence. But let me share this clip with you because, and when I share this clip, I want us to try to recap about what I'm talking about, because it wasn't Europeans that enslaved us, we enslaved us. So look at this clip. I want you to look at this, and then we're going to bring our guests on to talk about this.
Not and announced their presence at the apartment. The officer's statements about their announcement are corroborated by an independent witness who was near in proximity to apartment 4. In other words, the warrant was not served as a no-knock warrant. When officers were unable to get anyone to answer or open the door to apartment 4, the decision was made to breach the door. After breaching the door, Sergeant Mattingly was the first and only officer to enter the residence.
Oh, it's right there. It's right there. I got it. Yeah, I got it.
In the hall, a male and a female. In his statement, he says that the male was holding a gun, arms extended in a shooting stance. Sergeant Mattingly saw the man's gun fire.
There's your ratification.
All right. So, Dr. Allen, Dr. Rush, were you guys able to hear that clip?
Not really. I assume it meant was it from the Attorney General in Kentucky?
Yeah, that was,
Okay.
and you guys were not able to hear it on the air?
I did. I wasn't able. Maybe Brother Ellen was, but I think I get the gist of it.
It was a little shaky. Okay, but what the clip was mainly kind of talking about is the fact that this Cameron, the Attorney General, he gave a justified reason for the police officers, because one of them was shot, that justified them going in there and shooting up everything that don't move. That's what the clip was about. Now, I know Dr. Rush got a lot of stuff to talk about this because he teaches me a lot about stuff like this. But before I go to Dr. Rush, I want to talk to you, Kenneth Allen, because you're going to probably be with us shorter than what I know Dr. Rush will be around. I want to talk to you. You know how guys are. Once they make it, they may call you, they may not. I'm just trying to get them while I can get them. Now, I know he ain't going to do me like that. But Dr. Allen, when you look at this social status for Black males, I mean, for the Commission for Black Males, now, to me, if we were living in normal times where we are all created equal in the sight of God, et cetera, I don't think there would be a need for the commission. But because of racial discrimination and inclusion, it seems like there's a need, desperate need, not only for the state to be involved, but locally for our county to be involved. And I just want, I'm controversial, man. I'm going there today, man. I'm swinging both hands. Okay, that's what we doing today. Ain't nobody gonna be spared. And so that's not to be, in a bad, it's a good situation, because sometimes it's just good to air out what's going on so we can see what we can do to make it better. So talk to me, Doc. Based on what I just said, talk to me and give me what you think.
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you, Reverend Lipscomb, for having me on. Let me just, give some background information on the commission myself. Again, my name is Kenneth Allen. I am a native of Gary, Indiana. I've been living in this city almost 20 years now. And my first involvement with the commission was a young person. I remember as a middle school student, State Representative Smith, who authored the legislation to create the commission on the social status of Black males, would bring us down that were part of his mentoring group down to our state conference. And that was my first interaction with the commission. I'm now privileged to serve as the chair. I have been the chairman for the last 4 years. I've been on the commission, working with the commission over a decade. But for those that may not be familiar with the Indiana Commission on the Social Status of Black Males and why we were established and what it actually does, the commission has one responsibility, and that is to provide by law, as it is written in the code, annual report on the condition of African American males and what we call 5 focus areas: health, criminal justice, social factors, employment, and education. And that report is supposed to go to the governor and to the General Assembly. This brainchild of State Representative Vernon Smith, who was an educator, who was a new legislator at the time that this commission was created, saw many of the disparities that existed in African American males and realized that, the state was not, as a whole, was not doing a good job to address them, and noticed that we needed something specifically for African American males. When you look at the timeline, it was kind of around the same time that the whole Rodney King incident happened. And so he thought it not robbery to introduce legislation that actually created the commission, which it was fortunate to be bipartisan legislation. As you know, the Indianapolis Commission on African American Males was recently reactivated, but it's actually even older than the state commission. When Mayor Steve Goldsmith, who was the mayor of Indianapolis at that time, saw that the legislature was moving to form a Indiana commission, he, through his own powers, by way of executive order, established the Indianapolis Commission on African American Males. Now, that's our purpose, but we realize that although we're not a program institution, the data has forced us to do programs. So many folks in the community know the commission for our state conference that has happened every year for the last 20 plus years. This year, obviously, we had to go virtual because of COVID. Last week, we kicked it off talking about criminal justice and the disparities that exist. Most folks also know that every year for the last 10 years, we have been in barbershops all across the state, 60 barbershops, 15 cities, doing approximately 1,000 screenings a year for African American males. Because when you look at the data, our African American males are doing poor as it relates to their health. And they're not coming to a community event, to a church to get their health checked out, but they are in the barbershops. And so we've seen a lot of great success by going into the barbershops, introducing our health fair and providing those free screenings. And then also, Brother Lipscomb, my first job here in the state of Indiana working with young people was actually at the State House. I was over the PAGE program. For those that may not be familiar with the PAGE program, it's an opportunity for young people to come from all 92 counties to interact with their state representative or the state senator, learn how a bill becomes a law, and also get an opportunity to tour the state capitol and learn the different branches of government. Far too often when I was employed by the state those couple of years, I didn't see many folks, particularly that looked like me, Antonio, and it bothered me. And so when I was vice chair, I worked with then chairman, now Senator Eddie Melton, to create what we call Young Black Males Matter Day. And we've been fortunate to bring hundreds of African American males from all across the state down to the state capitol during the legislative session and teach these young men how a bill becomes a law, give them opportunity to interact with their legislatures and a tour, but it's a day specifically designed for them. To your point that if we were all equitable in this community, we would not need a commission on African American males. But the fact remains that far too often we are not treated equitable across the board. And so you need organizations like the Indiana Commission on the Social Status of Black Males, like the Indianapolis Commission, through the very hard work. And let me be very clear, this commission would not have been activated or reactivated if it had not been for people like yourself, Reverend Lipscomb, for people like Dr. Rush, who I worked for 4 years to get this done. But you all came alongside, saw the vision, supported it, and advocated. And I want to say publicly, as I've said privately, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your support, because without it, this commission would not be active. And I realize, for those that are listening, that the commission is not a panacea for the ills that African American males face, but it is a tool in the tool belt that will help us address some of the conditions and concerns that face our African American males here in the city of Indianapolis and the state of Indiana.
Well, God bless you, sir, and thank you for your very kind words. I know my pastor is a man that I love very dearly, and I know that he does a lot of work behind the scenes, and I know, he's not a person that gets his horn tooted too often. I'm trying to wait till I get in a position where I can do something really special for him and we got callers right now. I'm going to take these 2 callers, and then I'm going to come back to that. Go ahead, caller. Let the caller come through.
How you doing, Brother Antonio?
Good, sir. How you doing? Can y'all hear the caller?
Yes, I am the caller.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to comment on a couple of things that you were talking about earlier, especially when you were talking on the topics of Africans enslaving other Africans and selling them during the European slave trade.
Okay.
That slavery's been in effect pretty much since the beginning of time. This is pretty much a known fact. It's happened in all societies, all cultures. The difference between what happened, I would say, with Africans and then those between the European and even the Arab slave trade is that during the times of when Africans enslaved even their own people, they were still treated with humanity. And I believe the brothers and sisters that happened to enslave or sell their other brothers and sisters into slavery during that time were not conscious of the European consciousness and how they dealt with us as human beings. If anybody understands European history, the type of slavery that they invoked was chattel slavery.
Right.
It means your entire being belonged to them.
Right.
And that was not the concept of the African. Never has been. Because even you can go through scripture and take a person like Joseph, who was sold into slavery,
right,
he was owned by his brothers to his cousins, which were Ishmaelites.
Right.
He was still able to rise to the power of a vizier.
Let me say this to you.
Pharaoh.
Let me say this to you, because I don't mean to interrupt you. We only got an hour show, but I agree with you when it comes to treatment. However, and I'm gonna let Dr. Rush talk on this. Even though it may not have been an intentional act on our behalf as Africans to be so, to sell someone and predict their outcome of their sale, there's still, in my personal opinion, and Dr. Rush and Kenneth Allen are my guests, so they can comment on this, but I still feel in my heart that there has never been a real apology from Africans. And in relations, I mean, even if you can argue that they didn't intend for that to happen to us, it has happened. Okay. It has happened. And let me say this. And let me say this. And being that it's happened, in order for us to really come together like we should come together, we need an atonement for that act. I don't care about what happened and how, it happened far as we treated one another in slavery and whatnot. I'm talking about right now. And the reason why I'm saying this, Ahmad, is because we still have Black people who are sellouts in this country. I mean, absolutely. We are still, I disagree with that, brother. We are the worst of its kind when it comes to our own. And that's the reason why I wanted to share that clip with Mr. What's the Attorney General over there, Cameron. I wanted to paint a picture to show that we are still, I mean, even in Indianapolis, if we be honest and see the leadership, the Black leadership in our city, and still see the conditions of us having the largest murder rate, greatest murder rate, breaking records with Black men, and then we turn around and blame everybody else But my question is, where are the elders? Where are the leaders? Where are the people that are standing forward and coming together and not backbiting and not putting one another down and not condemning each other? As soon as one of us try to rise up to do something about it, it's not the European that's knocking us down. First, we're coming to the European aid and we are knocking each other down. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you a couple of more minutes to respond, and then we're going to move on to my guest. Go ahead.
Okay, just to try to keep this fairly short. I understand what you're saying, and I understand your point of view. But then I would think that Africans here in America would have to give an atonement and an apology to the Native American, because the Buffalo Soldiers are the ones that hunted them down in the West. Okay. Because we were the most skilled and trained. Okay. What I think is we have an illusion in an ideology that we have been forced to accept. Okay. Therefore, not just on our part as here Africans in America, but those on the mainland, on the mainland, because they were also colonialized. Right. You know, and went through different types of forms of imperialism. Right. So, if for those that are conscious and understand that we were played against one another, right, it behooves the intelligent that has studied history to understand. Okay, we understand what happened between one another. But we have a bigger enemy on our backs than an apology to one another. We have a person that will never apologize because they have justified their barbarism through ignorance. Right. And they try to justify it through religion and a bunch of other different things. Right. So my thing is that we have to put our isms as a group to the side. Those that are in the mainland, those that are in the diaspora. Right. To be able to come together against a much larger enemy than me going to apologize to a brother or sister, because I think once I came to knowledge of self, and I meet a brother or sister that's from the mainland or South America or the islands or in Southeast Asia, and we came to the knowledge of self, and we understand that we have a common enemy amongst one another, we can rise past our isms, because our isms will always keep us separated. Well, thank you. What you're looking for. Well, I want to thank you for your call. We look like we lost Dr. Rush again, but I really wanted to comment on this. As we move to the next caller, I want to comment on this. I wanted Dr. Rush to respond on this as well. Look like we lost Dr. Rush, but as we're gathering Dr. Rush back, I don't know why that happened to where we're losing Dr. Rush. Hopefully he'll get back on here. Okay, there you are, Dr. Rush. Listen, Doc, listen to what I'm saying, Doc. And I could be wrong, but this is just my frame of mind. Okay. When you really lay down the cards and look at how things happen, it was the kings in Africa that made the bargain and became an economic benefit to the kings over there to sell us as African Americans into these European countries. Now, I'm just a person that believes that we need to go to the root of where it started and be honest with that, because in my opinion, we still see attitudes of people who's supposed to be like, everybody's not a Dr. Rush. You know, Dr. Rush, he's going to mentor you. He's going to try to make you better. He's going to whip your tail sometime to get you in shape. But I don't see, and God forbid we ever lose somebody like Dr. Rush. I do not see people like Dr. Rush and others with no formal agenda that will come alongside young men, people like Kenneth Allen, that care enough to want to train young men, black men. I do not see that as a common practice. Dr. Rush, it's in your hands.
Well, you lift up a number of issues. I could not hear the last caller very well, and I couldn't hear the clip. But here's where I think this is going. You played the clip from the Attorney General from Kentucky, who sent things to the grand jury. And essentially, when you take things to the grand jury, you're the only lawyer in the room. So you pretty much can get what it is that you want out of the deal, because you're going to be the only one presenting. at least you're not going to present the alternative side unless you are really, really an honest person. And so when the protesters clamored and said, let us see what you presented in the grand jury, they did the absolute correct thing. But the spirit of what I see you trying to get at here, it seems to me, is by playing that clip, then you took us all the way back to before the Middle Passage in Africa. And you said that there were a number of tribes, the Buno tribe, the Yoruba tribe out of Nigeria, the Ashanti tribe out of Ghana, the Mbangala tribe out of Angola, the Yawidzi tribe out of Tanzania, and in the trans-sub-Saharan Africa, the Akin in Ghana and Ivory Coast, the Iwi tribe, the Igbo tribe, and you said that those kings, and if by extension those tribes, were in warring mode with each other. And so when the Europeans came over with rum and with guns and others, the people that they were fighting, the intramural battles that they were fighting, they sold off some of those people to the Europeans, and the Europeans in turn took them first to Europe and then took them to the Caribbeans, where they were going to chop down the sugar canes, and took them to Virginia, where they were going to deal with indigo, and took them so that they were in New Orleans, where they were going to chop down sugar cane, or deal with the boll weevils, with the cotton in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and the tobacco in North Carolina. In a lot of ways, you are absolutely correct that the theologians talk about the Hamitic curse, and the real Hamitic curse is not what God did to Cana or to Ham, but it's what we do to ourselves. And so in a real sense, there is a responsibility from each of these tribes that had these intramural conflicts, and then sold off slaves for rum and for trinkets and for guns to help them empower themselves. And some of that continue with, as your caller said, with colonialism. They're still raping Africa. They raped Africa for their people, then they came back and raped Africa for their precious gems, and so forth and so on. But on the other hand, the caller says something about chattel slavery and the kind of slavery that was done in the Caribbean and in the United States of America was absolutely atrocious. Chattel slavery, the slave codes. If you monitor the slave codes, they were a precursor to Jim Crowism and to all those kinds of things. You steal a biscuit and they cut off your ear. They take they demasculate you by chaining you to 2 horses or 4 horses, and bring all the women and the children out there, and let the horses pull in different direction and tear the human body. After 1808, when it was no longer legal in America for the transatlantic slave, by the way, that thing was called the Middle Passage, or the dreaded Middle Passage. And it had 2 sequences, one tight fitters, or the other one was loose fitters. Tight fitters, they put 1,400 or so Africans. And by the way, they were not slaves, they were Africans that became enslaved. They were artisans, they were kings, they were princes, they were doctors, they were horticulturists, and so forth and so on. So it was a hellish trip, that Middle Passage. The tight fitters, you put a whole lot in there. You didn't feed them very well, and so when they urinated in the one in front of them, and they defecated in the one in back of them. So it was a atrocious thing to do. It was a wicked thing to do. So when it was cut off in 1808, then it got worse, because now you had to bring them over outside extra legal, outside of the law. And so you were actually smuggling people in. So if you think the Middle Passage was bad, it was bad first. Then they had the Virginia farms where they had breeding farms, and you breed black folk like you breed cattle. And after that, you know, you had a war about it. 1861, 1863, Emancipation Proclamation. 1865, the war was over, and then for 65 to 75, you had Reconstruction, but you had this racist president. So after the Reconstruction, they began to make Jim Crow laws, and then all that petty roller and incarceration. So the thing Kenny Allen is fighting for with black men, that restarted again after Reconstruction, so that they brought the amendment that you cannot have slaves unless they are in prison. So all of a sudden, you see the prison population in the South rise over all these crazy things, because if you were in prison, then you could, and then they had tricks like the sharecropper. You can just stay on my farm and you work all year, and then we come and settle up and say, well, you worked all year, but I had to feed your family, and you had to use my mule and all that sort of thing. So the whole thing was atrocious. But if your point is that there is some responsibility from Yoruba, Ashanti, from Iwa and Igbo, you're absolutely correct that there is some responsibility, but there's a terrible responsibility for white people, both enslaving on the one hand and colonizing on the other hand. And one of the first wars that we've had here, of course, was when the Haitians, those from Haiti, got up and fought to emancipate themselves. So it's both issues need to be addressed.
Both of them need to be addressed, and I agree. We got a caller. Go ahead, caller. Go ahead. What's your comment?
You know, I'm getting tired of hearing the lies. Right? There was no Middle Passage. They imported about 30,000 Africans into this country.
You stop that. No.
Right? And for them to come out and lie about stuff like that, how bad it was. How bad it is. We can now the market will have for them to bring us over here, take care of us while we establish our presence in this country.
Okay.
Look at it like that. Even though it was, nobody's gonna, and he lied about the pulling somebody apart with a mule. They ain't going. Are you going to do go out and beat your car and chunk it down after you done paid money for it? Slaves cost $2,000 a hit.
Well,
nobody said anything about a mule, but I don't want it broadcast anywhere that there was not a Middle Passage. That's an offense to every black person in America. There was a dreaded Middle Passage. We are in the ocean right now because of the Middle Passage. And the Middle Passage didn't only go from the diaspora is broader than that. We got black folks in Canada. We got black folks in the United States. We got a lot of black folks in Brazil and Argentina. There was a terrible Middle Passage.
Well, let me say this, and I understand that. But one thing I want to consider, I want to see if Kenneth Allen would consider this, because I want to go back to what Dr. Rush talked about before with those tribes, and that's the reason why I appreciate him being on the show. I don't know the history and can quote things like he can, but here's the thing: if both me and Dr. Rush, we share in this career move. We both was insurance men, right? We both did some insurance. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Whether if I'm looking at a claim, and Mr. Allen, I want you to kind of give me your thought on this. Say, for instance, if me and you are walking down the street, right? And say it's a busy street, say it's 38th Street. And the cars are shooting by, and I throw you, as soon as I see a truck coming, I push you right in front of the truck. You get hit by the truck. Now the truck didn't kill you, but it could have killed you, right? Is there still some responsibility on my part to say, hey, I'm sorry? Or do we say, oh, well, normally when I push people in front of trucks, they don't die. So the probability of you dying was pretty low. So being that you didn't die, I don't really want to tell you I'm sorry. Maybe if everybody died that I pushed in front of a truck, then maybe I might have some remorse. But being that I don't have that level of remorse because I've never apologized to you, do you see where I'm going? What I'm saying is, when Dr. Rush, I'm trying to go back to what you said earlier, Dr. Rush. You said something about those African kings selling the people over, our descendants over into slavery, right? Now, did those kings have a responsibility to make a conscious decision of how this will affect Africa and how this will affect the people that's being sold into these European countries? Did they have that as a responsibility before they made that judgment? Because they was in power enough to not make that decision. So Dr. Allen, I want to call Kenneth Allen real quick, then I'm going to go to Dr. Rush out of fairness. Okay. Because what I'm trying to build up to is the fact that I'm hoping when you do this commission, we can do a day of atonement. I mean, let's start out, like the caller said, hey, they ain't gonna never admit that they wrong. That's fine. That ain't, we can't make nobody else do nothing. But what about an atonement when it comes to us? Not only what the African kings did to us, but also what we doing to each other. What do you have to say about that, Doc?
Yeah, absolutely. Given the example that you give, the responsibility is definitely dual. But what I will say is that, yes, although we have to say that Black Lives Matter, and I absolutely wholeheartedly believe Black Lives Matter, but not only does that message have to resonate at the White House, it got to resonate at the trap house. When you look at the homicide rates that we face here in Indianapolis, far too often, many of the homicides are Black male shooting another Black male. So we have some work to do internally, but we also, as Dr. Rush indicated, there's some work that has to be done externally. But I think for me that it is so important, as you alluded to at the start of the show, is that our history is so important. You have to know where you've been and understand and know where you're going. And one of the reasons I even decided to run for school board is because I looked at some of the curriculums and I looked at some of the schools, and our history is not being taught. When you look at a school district in Indianapolis like IPS with over 70% of children of color in the district, and then you look at the teaching staff and it doesn't reflect the population we serve, that's problematic. So we have to make sure that we are encouraging and fostering more children, more teachers that look like the children we serve. You have over 60 countries represented within IPS school district. That also needs to show out in the curriculums that we use. I know for me, Dr. Rush and Reverend Lipscomb, when I was about third grade, I saw a Black man in my social studies book. And for me, I listened up, I straightened up, and I was like, man, this guy has hair like mine, his skin is like mine, and it made me want to pay attention. It made me want to learn. And so I think when we have people who look like us that are able to teach us our history, and when I say history, I'm not talking about everything that we accomplished in America as slaves or former slaves, but take us our history back to Africa, as Dr. Rush indicated, when we were kings, queens, and we invented math, science, and etc. Teach us our history, not just doing Black history, but 365, and make sure that we're not starting with what we accomplished as slave masters, but we're talking about our history going back to inception. I think it's very important that our children need to understand who they are, where they come from, and then we'll start to see a shift more that we can teach them about themselves.
Well, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And Dr. Rush, I didn't mean to cut you off, man. I know you're going to listen, man. If you ever just want to come on here for a full hour and talk, let's work that out, because you just a great minded person like that. But go ahead, Dr. Rush. Let's share. Let's see what you have to say.
Yeah, I want to say that my dear brother, Kenneth Allen, in all seriousness, I thank God for Kenneth Allen. And I want to stay with his train of thought. We have a school board that's been folded, spindled, and mutilated and almost killed. I believe a school board ought to be local. I don't believe that Betsy Savas or charter schools or whatever should import a lot of people into Indianapolis public school and get them on the board because they got a lot of money and then make decisions that does not inure to the benefit of those who are in Indianapolis. I think that you need to come from us. I think that they even some of the black folks they put on, they are our skin but not our kin. Kenny has been with us long enough. He suffered with us. He's cried with us. He's fought with us. He's felt some of the defeats. And this is the kind of brilliant mind. You need to help somebody with the capacity to know, but with the conscience to care. And he has the learning and the burning. Jawanda Kunjufu said that in all the statistical categories, black male, white male, black female, white female, that the African-American male did quite well between kindergarten to the 4th grade. And then when they get to the 4th grade, they hit the wall in something called the 4th grade syndrome. Part of the reason why they hit that wall is because they don't see anybody with instruction responsibility that look like them. There are other factors why they hit that wall. So it's going to be very, very, very important that we have people that come from us. The inner city schools have different challenges. The Carmel school system might have to discuss how warm they want the swimming pool. But the inner city school, when I ran for school board, a teacher came and said, Dr. Rush, when you get on the board, will you get us teachers that like children? Now, stupid me said, well, don't all teachers like children? And the response was, no, sir, they don't. They like the salary, but they don't like children. And then someone else said to me, we have to teach children that lived in that car down the street. And so I'm excited about Kenneth Allen and getting him on this school board. And we need more like him because as Bill Crawford used to say to me all the time, Dr. Rush, he always said, Elder Rush. I said, yeah, Bill, children are the message that we will send to a future that we might never see. When Bill used to say that, I just said, yeah, Bill, yeah. But Bill's not here anymore. So we need to fill up those vacuums. We need to get our brightest and our young men, and we need to empower them. And we need to say, this is the mission, because they got to fit our young people to go into a future. And if the biblical example is appropriate right here, Elisha said to Elijah, he said, what can I give you before I leave? He said, give me a double portion. Why a double portion? Because the demons that you face ain't nothing compared to the demons that I got to face. And so Kenny Allen, we fought the Michael Taylor, Leonard Barnett, Heidegger, brawl, rateable reduction, those kind of demons. But they got some new synthetic demons. They got some manufactured demons coming out. So you young men, we got to get y'all ready to fight them demons. And y'all need a double dose. Y'all need a double anointing. And so, yeah, I would come back to that. But I want to keep the discussion right here. This school board and this election, you got a president who's trying to put a Supreme Court, them 300 justices, they don't know they butt from a hole in the ground. They're going to mess up the post office. We got to vote. We got to get a Kenny Allen and get some clones and get some folks and put these people in there to fight for us.
Yeah, and I agree. I can't endorse anyone on our show. Well, say it loud, Reverend. Say it loud.
I won't kill it.
Well, there you go, Doc. There you go. Let me say this. Let me say this as well.
All time. No, I ain't waiting.
And I want to say, if you want to know who I endorse, I can't do it on the air, but just look at my Facebook page and you'll see who I endorse. It's very clear on who I support. And I want to say this in conjunction to that. I'm hoping, and I know, I don't have any level of influence like my guests have on this show, but I'm hoping one day we can come to a place of atonement, even with the African brothers and American, African American brothers, that we could come together with a day of atonement and a day of healing and reconciliation is what I hope we could do in our heart. I think one of the things Dr. Thomas Brown talked about when he was on the show was us being able to come together and share love one toward another. And I'm gonna tell you something, Reverend. Why I got you on the show? I'm gonna make a confession. I'll make a confession why I got you on the show. I didn't do good this week. These Negroes was bothering me, and I couldn't take it no more. I said some things I know I shouldn't have said. So I'll just let you know. I'm trying to tell you I need atonement. I'm trying to tell you I need atonement. I'm sick of us fighting each other. What I'm saying, Pastor, this is what I'm saying. I love you, man, because you care. You care, man. These dudes in your same age group, the people that I'm supposed to be looking up to, these are main demons. This coming and they're claiming that they man of God. Now I can understand if you was a black Donald Trump and you was, and I know that you gonna come up against me. That's one thing. But for an elder, a person who's supposed to have my back and my best interest at heart, those are the ones that's on the front line attacking people like Kenny and myself. And so I'm saying, man, how can we fix that, Elder? How can we fix it, Doc? We got about 3 minutes. Go ahead, talk to us.
I don't want to take 3 minutes because I want Kenny to have the last word. Let me just tell you, what you lifted up today is a historic problem. And in the book of Matthew, Jesus said, we planted wheat and tares are in there. They said, well, let's go tear up the whole ground. Jesus said, no, let the wheat and tare grow together, and I will separate them. Our African brothers were the kings of Yoruba, Ashanti, whatever, and those in the diaspora. We're going to have to sit down and have a come to Jesus moment with the family, with the whole family. Those in Africa, those who are Pan-Canadians, those who are, we're going to have that family discussion. Here's why. They sold some of their fighters into captivity because they were myopic and parochial. And in some ways, when you see these guys, I preached a funeral the other day.
Hold on for a minute, Reverend. Hold on, because you use that doctorate stuff. You use them big old words. And I know my audience ain't going to be...
Myopic means that you can't see nothing by it. Anyway, I was preaching a funeral, and the guy come up, and he was pouring libation in the casket. And he was saying, two pipe. I said, ho. Your mom and daddy don't own nothing on 25th Street. And you got red and you got blue, and you're going to shoot him and you're going to shoot him. That is similar to Yoruba, Ashanti, all of those things. And you do that out of pain. We got to have a sit-down meeting and say to us, whether you octoroon, quadroon, whether you mulatto, whether you whatever it is just like the man that Martin Luther King replaced when and they were talking about his PhD and all that sort of thing. and he said, Brother Deacon, what do you call a black man in Hattiesburg, Mississippi with a PhD? He said, I don't know. He used the N-word, a blank with a PhD. We need to understand, no matter what ship we came over here, we're in the same boat now. We got to have that collective meeting to sit down and say, whether it's colonialism over there or enslavement over here, let's come together and see how we can lift each other. We just did something at the state with some people from Sudan and south of Eritrea. They couldn't get their farm products sold. And right there in Memphis, Tennessee, Bishop David Hall right now is working because they sell the black farmers down there inferior seeds. What difference does it make if it's Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, or whether it's Sudan, or whether it's Southern Sudan, or what? The same thing is happening. When are we going to have that meeting where we come and sit down?
Now, you know, that's good.
And develop our own plan and go forward.
Right. That's a good question, because I got 2 minutes. I want to respect the guests here. Dr. Allen, Dr. Rush has really made a great point here. And with your commission, what we're simply saying to you is, would you consider, you know, with some of the businesses and whatnot, you know, that could donate and build this thing up, would you consider, instead of us talking about Russell Simmons and all these great, you know, entertainers, which if you look at that clip, you'll see that we had a lot of dancers and shakers and all this sort of thing that we had to do, and we got all that. But what about bringing together this opportunity? And I'm not shooting that down. I'm just, you know, just throwing this out here, bringing us together to where we can really, you know, be about atonement and healing. You had the last 60 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me just clarify. It's not my commission. It's the People's Commission. I've just been privileged to lead it, and I would have no problem entertaining that conversation to see how we could collectively move together as a body. But with these last few seconds, I want to just press upon the listening audience how important it is to vote, and not just vote yourself, but bring somebody to the polls. The election is happening on November 3rd. President is on the ballot, but also school board is on the ballot. Yes, it's obvious that I am, in fact, running for Indianapolis School Board at large. I hope that you will check us out, Kenneth Allen for IPS School Board. But most importantly, I want you to vote because Trayvon Martin can't vote. Breonna Taylor can't vote. Ahmaud Arbery can't vote. And so we have to use every muster of strength we have to vote, and bring somebody to the polls with you after you vote.
Well, that's great. I appreciate you guys coming on the show, and I want to say, I know it's not your commission, but you're the president. You got some influence there. So I'm hoping that you will use your seat to will this thing into power of trying to make sure we come together, because not too many people can pull something like that off. But I'm thinking with your mind and your intelligence and your will to get things done, I see you in action. I know you can help us, lead us in this direction. I almost want to have a word of prayer, but we out of time. It's 7:01. We'll get that in next week. But I've been your host, Antonio Lipscomb, and feel free to subscribe on YouTube. And continue to follow us, like, share, post. We'll appreciate our guests, and God bless them. We're going to try to continue this conversation next week, and you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. God bless you, and take care. Peace.